Look at your phone. Now look at your hands. Between those two things, there's a war going on that you didn't sign up for, but you're losing every single day. I'm not talking about some get-rich-quick motivation or that fake just-be-positive nonsense you see on your feed. I'm talking about the heavy, suffocating cloud that follows you into the shower, sits with you at the dinner table, and screams at you when you're trying to fall asleep at 2 a.m. You know that feeling? That knot in your chest that tells you you're falling behind, that everyone else has the secret manual to life and yours got lost in the mail? Here's a truth that's going to sting. Your mind is currently a playground for every ghost, every ex, every mean boss, and every what if you've ever encountered. You've handed the keys to your internal kingdom to people who don't even like you. You're letting a version of yourself that doesn't even exist anymore drive the car. But what if I told you there's a way to shut it all down? Not by fighting it, because fighting just gives it more energy, but by using a mental ghost protocol. There are laws to the human mind that are older than the country you live in. These aren't suggestions. They are gravity. And once you understand them, the world doesn't change, but your ability to walk through the fire without getting burned does. Think about a professional athlete. When they miss a shot in front of 20,000 screaming fans, they don't go sit on the bench and cry about how their childhood was hard. They don't let that one mistake define their entire career. Why? Because they have a short memory. They know that the next play is the only thing that actually exists. Most of us, we're playing a game from 3 years ago. We're still upset about a comment someone made in high school. We're still reliving a breakup like it happened 10 minutes ago. We are literally haunting ourselves. We live in a world that is designed to keep you distracted, offended, and tired. If you are tired, you are easy to control. If you are offended, you are easy to sell to. If you are distracted, you'll never notice that the cage door has been open this whole time. The ancient masters, the guys who stood in the middle of actual wars and stayed as calm as a frozen lake, they didn't have special dina. They just understood law number 1. Most people think being strong means having a thick skin. It doesn't. Being strong means having a clear filter. Imagine you're standing at the entrance of a high-end club. Your mind is that club. Currently, the bouncer is asleep at the door. Every loser, every negative thought, every I'm not good enough vibe, and every piece of garbage news is just walking right in, sitting on the VIP couches and trashing the place. You're wondering why you feel like a mess? It's because you're letting everyone in. The first law of the Ghost Protocol is simple but brutal. You are the bouncer. You have to start vetting every single thought that tries to cross the velvet rope. You need to look that thought in the eye and ask, is this true, or is this just loud? Most of the things that keep you up at night aren't even true. They're just loud. They're brain noise. We've been conditioned to believe that because we feel something, it must be a fact. If I feel like a failure, I must be a failure. If I feel anxious, there must be something to be afraid of. That's a lie. Feelings are just weather. Just because it's raining outside doesn't mean the sky is falling. It just means you need an umbrella, or better yet, the realization that you aren't the rain, you're the person watching it. If you don't learn how to separate yourself from your suggestions, you're going to spend your whole life being a puppet. And the worst part? You're the one pulling the strings. Are you ready to stop being the victim of your own imagination? Because once we move into the second law, there's no going back to the old way of thinking. You're going to start seeing the glitches in your own negativity. You're going to realize that the invisible wars you've been fighting are actually just shadows on the wall. And it's time to turn on the lights. So, you've decided to wake up the bouncer. Good. But now that you're standing at the door, you're going to notice something frustrating. The trash thoughts don't just go away because you told them to. They're going to argue. They're going to tell you that you're being delusional, that you're faking it, and that the real you is the one who's miserable. This brings us to the second law of the ghost protocol, the law of the arena. Most of us live our lives as if we're sitting in the nosebleed seats of a stadium watching a version of ourselves play a game down on the field. We sit up there and judge. Why did I say that? Why am I so awkward? Why can't I just be normal? We become commentators on our own suffering. But here's the secret the world's highest performers know. The guy in the stands has a lot of opinions, but he has zero power. The only person with power is the guy on the dirt, getting his jersey dirty, taking the hits. Stoicism isn't about being a statue, it's about being an athlete of the mind. When a negative thought hits you, like that sudden realization that you're behind in life compared to some person you saw on Instagram, you have to realize that thought is a spectator. It's a heckler. And you? You are the player. Imagine you're driving a car through a thick fog. If you stare at the fog, you're going to crash. If you try to fight the fog, you're going to look crazy. What do? You look at the 2 feet of road right in front of your headlights. That's it. You don't solve the fog, you solve the next 2 feet. We get overwhelmed because we try to solve the next 10 years in one Tuesday afternoon. We try to figure out how we're going to be successful, happy and fit all at once, and when we can't see the path, we freeze. We let the ghost of the future scare us out of the present. The law of the arena demands that you shrink your world. Stop trying to fix your life. That's too big. It's a mountain. You can't move a mountain, but you can pick up one rock. The rock is what you're doing right now. It's the next breath. It's the next choice. If you're at work, it's the next email. If you're at the gym, it's the next rep. When you focus on the 2 feet in front of the headlights, the fog doesn't matter anymore. You're moving, and movement is the kryptonite of anxiety. Anxiety is just a what-if that hasn't happened yet. It's a horror movie you're writing in your head, starring yourself as the victim. But have you noticed that 99% of the horror movies you've written never actually made it to the big screen? You've survived every worst-case scenario your brain has ever invented. Your track record for getting through the impossible is 100%. So why do we still listen to the heckler in the stands? Because we have a debt to the past. We feel like we owe it to our failures to keep thinking about them. We think that if we stop worrying, we're being irresponsible. We think that stressing out is the same thing as caring. It's not. Stressing out is just spinning your tires in the mud. You're burning fuel, you're making a lot of noise, and you're ruining the engine, but you aren't going anywhere. Law number 2 is about realizing that your energy is a finite resource. You only have a certain amount of mental battery every day. Every time you argue with a ghost from your past, or worry about a shadow in your future, you're plugging your phone into a charger that's actually draining the power. You need to become a miser with your attention. You need to guard it like it's $1 million in cash. If someone walked up to you and tried to steal $1,000 out of your pocket, you'd fight them. But when a random negative thought tries to steal an hour of your peace, you just hand it over. You even give it a tip. It's time to stop the leak. It's time to realize that the arena is small, the goal is simple, and the hecklers don't have tickets to the game. You gave them those tickets for free. So, you've stopped the leak. You're guarding your attention like a vault. But now, a new enemy appears. It's the one that catches you when you're doing well. It's the what if I lose it all? Or the this is too good to be true. This leads us directly into the third law of the Ghost Protocol, the law of the rental. In the US, we are obsessed with ownership. We want to own our house, own our car, and own our future. We treat our happiness like a permanent piece of real estate. But the Stoics had a realization that sounds a bit cold at first, but it's actually the ultimate key to freedom. You don't own anything. Not your job, not your money, not even your health. Everything you have is on a short-term lease. Think about it like renting a high-end Airbnb for the weekend. You enjoy the pool, you sit on the balcony, you use the fancy coffee maker, but you don't get depressed when you have to check out on Sunday. Why? Because you knew it wasn't yours to keep. You enjoyed it while it was there, and you left without a broken heart. Most of our mental suffering comes from the ownership trap. We think we own our reputation. So, when someone says something bad about us, it feels like they're stealing our property. We think we own our success, so when the market dips or the boss is grumpy, we feel like our foundation is crumbling. But when you adopt the law of the rental, you become untouchable. If you're having a great day, awesome. It's a rental. Enjoy the view. If you're having a terrible day, fine. That's a rental too. The lease is up at midnight. This perspective shifts you from a victim to a visitor. A visitor doesn't get worked up when the hotel Wi-Fi is slow. They just find something else to do. When you realize that your current emotions are just temporary guests in your mind, you stop trying to evict them with force. You just wait for their checkout time. The reason your negative thinking feels so heavy is that you're trying to build a house on top of a cloud. You're trying to find permanent stability in a world that is constantly moving. It's like trying to grab a handful of water. The harder you squeeze, the faster it disappears. The Ghost Protocol teaches us to open the hand. Imagine your mind is a wide open sky. Your thoughts? They're just planes flying through. Some are big, loud, and scary. Some are small and quiet. But no matter how big the plane is, it cannot hurt the sky. The sky doesn't argue with the plane. It doesn't try to knock it down. It just provides the space for the plane to pass through until it's gone. You are the sky. The negativity is just a flight that's passing over. When you start living this way, you develop what I call tactical indifference. This isn't about being a robot or not caring about anything. It's about being selective. It's about looking at a stressful situation and saying, this is inconvenient, but it's not an emergency. In the US, we treat everything like an emergency. A late email? Emergency. A rude comment in the checkout line? Emergency. A flat tire? Life-altering catastrophe. We are living in a state of constant high alert, and our nervous systems are fried because of it. But a Stoic veteran knows that if it isn't the end, it's just the middle. And the middle is always manageable. The ghosts in your head want you to believe that every setback is a permanent tattoo. They want you to think that this feeling of not being enough is your new identity. But once you realize that identity itself is a rental, you can change it whenever you want. You can check out of the loser hotel and move into the new beginning whenever you decide to stop paying the rent on your old excuses. We're about to move into the fourth law, and this one is the hammer. It's the law that smashes the biggest lie you've ever been told about your own potential. If you've ever felt like you're waiting for permission to be happy, Part 3 was your eviction notice. It's time for the hammer. We've talked about the bouncer, the arena, and the rental. But those are all defensive moves. They're about protecting your peace. Law number 4 is about taking the territory back. It's called the law of the sculptor. Most people in America are waiting for a moment. They're waiting for the right time to start that business, the right mood to go to the gym, or the right person to tell them they're good enough. We've been fed this Hollywood lie that one day a mentor will show up or a lightning bolt will strike, and suddenly we'll be fixed. That's the permission trap, and it's the biggest reason you're stuck in a loop of negative thinking. You're waiting for the weather to change before you start building your house. The Stoic truth? The weather doesn't care about your house. And the moment is never coming. Think about a block of marble. It's cold, it's heavy, and it's ugly. If you just sit there and stare at it, hoping it'll turn into a statue of a hero, you're going to be waiting forever. You have to take the hammer and the chisel, and you have to start hitting it. Here's the part most people miss. The statue isn't inside the marble. You aren't finding yourself. You are creating yourself. Every time you choose to get up when you want to sleep in, that's a strike of the chisel. Every time you choose to speak kindly to yourself, instead of repeating that old "I'm a failure" script, that's a chip of stone falling away. You don't become a masterpiece by adding things. You become a masterpiece by cutting away everything that isn't you. Your negative thoughts are just the excess stone. They aren't the truth. They're just the stuff that needs to be removed. When you feel that heavy sense of "I can't do this," that's the marble resisting the chisel. It's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would be walking around as a masterpiece. Instead, most people are just unformed blocks of stone complaining about the dust. In our culture, we love to play the blame game. We blame our parents, our boss, the economy, or our bad luck. And hey, maybe you did get a bad hand. Maybe your block of marble is cracked or twice as big as everyone else's. The law of the sculptor says, it doesn't matter. The sculptor doesn't complain about the quality of the stone. He works with the stone he has. If there's a crack in the marble, he works it into the design. He makes the crack part of the art. This is what we call amor fati, a Latin phrase that basically means love your fate. Not just tolerate it, but love it. If you're facing a massive challenge right now, that's just high-quality marble. That's a chance to build a bigger, stronger statue. Negative thinking thrives on passive living. It loves it when you're laying on the couch, scrolling, letting life happen to you. But the moment you pick up the chisel, the moment you take one small, disciplined action, the ghosts lose their power. They can't haunt a moving target. Have you ever noticed that when you're actually doing the work, the anxiety disappears? It's only when you stop to think about the work that the fear creeps back in. That's because the sculptor is too busy to listen to the heckler. You don't need a life coach. You don't need a self-help book. You don't need a sign from the universe. You just need to realize that you are both the artist and the stone. And the only thing stopping you from being the person you admire is your refusal to pick up the tools. We are halfway through the protocol. You've got the tools in your hand, but there's a hidden trap waiting for you. A trap called the mirror. And if you aren't careful, it'll make you drop the hammer before you even finish the first act. So, you've picked up the chisel. You're ready to work. But then, you catch a glimpse of yourself in the reflection of your own progress, and you freeze. You see the flaws. You see the time you wasted. You see how far you still have to go. Welcome to the fifth law of the Ghost Protocol, the law of the mirror. In the US, we are obsessed with comparison culture. We don't just want to be good, we want to be better than the guy next door. We look in the mirror and we don't see our progress. We see the gap between us and some billionaire on a yacht. This is where the ghost of inadequacy lives. It whispers that your effort doesn't matter because someone else is already at the finish line. But the Stoics had a mirror hack that changes everything. They believed that the only person you are allowed to compete with is the ghost of who you were yesterday. Imagine your life is a race. Most people are running while looking sideways, checking the lanes next to them. What happens when you run while looking sideways? You trip. You lose your form. You slow down. The law of the mirror says you must blind the lanes. You have to put on the mental equivalent of horse blinkers. If you improved by 1% today, if you controlled your temper one time when you usually would have snapped, or if you did 5 minutes of work when you wanted to do 0, you won. Period. The negative mind loves big sweeping goals because they are easy to fail. I'm going to change my entire life starting tomorrow is a lie your brain tells you so it can feel good today and give up on Monday. The ghost protocol is about the micro win. Think about a massive ocean liner. If you want to change its direction, you don't just yank it 180 degrees. If you did, the ship would capsize. You move the rudder just a few inches. At first, it looks like nothing is happening. You're still heading into the same dark water. But over 100 miles, those few inches of rudder movement mean the difference between landing in Hawaii or crashing into an iceberg. Your thoughts are your rudder. When a negative thought pops up, let's say it's the classic "I'm not where I should be at my age," the mirror law tells you to stop looking at the should. The should is a ghost. It doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is the eyes. Is I better than I was an hour ago? Even if the answer is I'm more aware of my thoughts, that is a victory. We live in a high-stakes society where we feel like every mistake is a permanent stain on our record. We treat our lives like a live performance with no rehearsals. But Stoicism teaches us that life is the rehearsal. Every interaction, every bad mood, every failure is just data. When a scientist runs an experiment and it fails, they don't go home and cry about how they're a loser. They say, "Interesting. That variable didn't work. Let's try a different one." Why don't we treat our minds like that? If you spend the morning in a dark pit of negative thinking, don't beat yourself up in the afternoon. That's just double taxing yourself. You're paying for the mistake twice. Instead, look in the mirror and say, "Okay, the negativity variable was high today. Why? Was I scrolling too much? Did I skip breakfast? Was I hanging out with energy vampires?" When you become a scientist of your own soul, the ghosts lose their emotional grip. They stop being demons and start being data points. But there's a danger. Even if you master the mirror, there's something outside your house that's waiting to break the windows. There's a force that most people try to control, and their failure to do so is what ultimately breaks them. To handle it, we need law number 6. So, you've mastered the mirror. You're tracking your own data. But then, you step outside. You get stuck in traffic. Your boss changes the deadline, or someone you love says something that cuts deep. Suddenly, the ghost protocol feels impossible because the world won't stop throwing bricks at your head. This brings us to the most famous and most misunderstood law of all, the law of the sphere. Imagine you are standing inside a transparent sphere. Inside that sphere is everything you can actually change: your effort, your words, your morning routine, and how you talk to yourself. Outside the sphere is everything else: the weather, the economy, the traffic, other people's opinions, and the past. Most people spend 95% of their mental energy trying to reach through the glass to fix things outside the sphere. They're trying to fix their boss's attitude or change the fact that it's raining. They are screaming at the sky because it's blue. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. I call it saving your battery. Think about your favorite video game. If you try to control the non-playable characters, NPCs, with your controller, you're going to lose. The game only works when you focus on your own character. Life is the exact same way. When you get upset about something you can't control, you are literally giving away your power. You are saying to the world, hey, if you act a certain way, you can make me miserable. I'm giving you the remote control to my heart. Why would you do that? Why would you let a random person in a car or a stranger on the internet decide if you're going to have a good day? The law of the sphere says that if it's outside the glass, it's indifferent. It's not good, and it's not bad, it just is. A flat tire isn't bad, it's just a flat tire. The bad part comes from your mind screaming, this shouldn't be happening. But it is happening. And by fighting reality, you're just adding a second layer of pain to the first one. The tire is flat, that's layer 1. You're angry about the tire, that's layer 2. You can't fix layer 1 immediately, but layer 2 is entirely up to you. In the US, we have this toxic idea that if we aren't outraged or stressed, we don't care. We think that being calm in a crisis means we're lazy. But who do you want leading you in a fire? The guy screaming and crying about how this shouldn't be happening, or the guy who looks at the flames, identifies the exit, and starts moving? The ghosts hate the sphere. They want you to feel responsible for the whole world so that you feel too heavy to move your own feet. They want you to worry about things you can't change, so you never have the energy to change the things you can. Here is your new mantra for when the world gets loud: not my sphere, not my problem. Your friend is being dramatic, not your sphere. The news is depressing, not your sphere. Someone didn't text you back, not your sphere. Your response to that friend, your sphere. Your decision to turn off the news, your sphere. Your choice to go for a walk instead of staring at your phone, your sphere. When you stop reaching through the glass, your life becomes incredibly simple. You realize that you only have a few things to manage, but you can manage them perfectly. You become a specialist in your own life instead of a confused amateur in everyone else's. We have reached the final gate. You've protected your mind, you've picked up your tools, and you've drawn your circle. But there is one final law, the one that ties it all together. It's the law that turns all this theory into a permanent shield. We've built the fortress, we've set the bouncer at the door, reclaimed the arena, and drawn our sphere of control. But there is one final piece of the ghost protocol that most people forget. They think they've won, and they let their guard down. Then one bad Tuesday hits, and they feel like they're back at square one. That's because they haven't mastered the seventh law, the law of the echo. In the US, we're obsessed with the Big Bang moment. We want the one breakthrough, the one realization, or the one video that fixes us forever. But your mind isn't a light switch, it's a muscle. And muscles don't stay strong because of something you did once. They stay strong because of what you do every single day. The law of the echo says that your life is simply a collection of the small things you do when no one is watching. Your character isn't formed in the invisible wars we talked about at the start. It's formed in the quiet moments right after you wake up. Think about a mountain climber. He doesn't get to the top by jumping. He gets there by taking one boring, painful step and then doing it again 10,000 times. If he looks at the peak, he gets overwhelmed. If he looks at his feet, he finds a rhythm. That rhythm is your echo. Every time a negative thought pops up and you use the sphere to dismiss it, You're creating an echo. At first, it's faint, but as you keep doing it, that echo becomes the background music of your life. Eventually, you don't even have to try to be stoic. You just are. You become the person who stays calm when the coffee spills, the person who smiles when the plan changes, the person who doesn't need external validation because you have an internal gold standard. The ghosts are still going to try to talk to you. They never truly leave. But the louder your echo becomes, the echo of discipline, the echo of truth, and the echo of self-respect, the more their voices sound like static on a radio you aren't even listening to. You've been a silent fighter for a long time. You've battled demons that no one else could see, and you've carried weights that would have crushed most people. But today, the war ends. Not because the world became a nicer place, but because you became a more dangerous opponent. You are no longer a victim of your own mind. You are the architect. You are the sculptor. You are the bouncer. When you close this video, the ghosts are going to try to pull you back. They're going to tell you that this was just another motivational video and that tomorrow you'll go back to the old way. That's their last-ditch effort to keep their power. Prove them wrong. Take one small action right now, something in your sphere. Put your phone in another room, drink a glass of water, or just sit in silence for 60 seconds without judging yourself. That is your first strike of the chisel for the new masterpiece you're building. You have the protocol. Now, go execute it. If this message hit home, if it gave you the tools to finally quiet the noise and reclaim your mind, don't keep it to yourself. There are millions of silent fighters out there still lost in the fog. Like this video, share it with someone who's battling their own ghosts, and subscribe to Stoic Origin to stay locked into the protocol. Your new life doesn't start tomorrow. It starts the second you decide to stop listening to the hecklers. I'll see you in the arena.